Hey, I'm Ben Silverio.
And I'm Erin Cline.
And I'm Ansel Burch.
And it's time to party.
We are not doctors. We don't give medical advice. Please drink responsibly. This episode was recorded on January 20th, 2025.
This is where our theme song goes. Oh, party people, we are so happy to have you here with us today because we are wrapping up our time with Back to the Future Part 2. Joining us for this amazing conversation about one of our favorite movies ever of all time. We have Erin Cline coming back.
Hello. So lovely
What's up?
To be back, especially on my favorite episode that I forced you guys to have. So I'm glad you still do it.
Hey, listen, it was the perfect storm of things because February marks our 4-year anniversary of the podcast. February is my birthday.
February is my son's birthday too.
See, it's a great month. We are all about letting yourself experience joy in this time, especially on days like today, where, full disclosure,
you all heard the time.
the day that we're recording this.
This is why we include the dates, so that people have an understanding of what the fuck is happening here.
So you have some context. My city is on fire, but soon the country will be on fire. So again.
So if the vibes are a little off, you know why.
It's true. And so
that said, the vibes have been immaculate up till now.
I know. I feel like we've been having good vibes. We're pushing those. We're experiencing joy. We are pushing out the bad vibes. Keep them out there.
We absolutely are. And I want to
right over them.
Yes. Yeah. Please. So I know that our third episode is all about edutainment, which is one of the great things that Erin imparted us with here on Time to Party. But I would actually like to borrow something from one of Erin's podcasts real quick.
Okay.
Because I have a rave.
Okay.
My rave is the incredible Erin Cline.
Oh, shut up.
Because I really want to say this in a public way first. Starting this podcast with you and Ansel has been so great over these past few years. It does in fact bring joy, but the whole reason why we started this was so that we would have a way to hang out on a more regular basis. And I love that for our friendship. But in all the years that I've known you, away from podcasting and stuff, one of the things that I've come to respect most about Erin is her conviction. Because I don't think I have the self. Okay. One example, you boycotted WWE for the longest time and stuck to it.
Until your party, because I was there with you. I wanted to see you. Yeah, I went more than 6 years without ever watching anything from WWE.
Which is so wild. But still, you have not given them a cent. And that's much better than any type of thing that I would have tried to do. I am weak in that regard.
Amazon tests me every day.
I still don't watch their Saudi shows.
No.
But the Royal Rumble is in Saudi next year, and that's going to be a tough one to skip, which sucks.
Nah.
But, when you're growing up, when you're a kid, you think adults know everything and adults have all the answers. And the truth is that they don't. But the closest thing that I have in my life to a real actual adult is Erin Cline.
Shut up.
Because Erin is so informed and she, helps others be informed, and she'll yell at the top of her lungs to make sure people know and are informed. And I love it so much. So in this time of celebration of our 4 years doing this, which is so wild, I'm so glad that we can have you on to verbally give you flowers and shout out how awesome you are.
Thank you. I'm not crying yet, but it did almost make me
That's
cry.
very good.
Yeah, thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry.
That's very sweet of you. It's you say like when you're a kid and you think like all adults know everything. There was like a moment in my life where I realized, fuck, I'm the adult and I don't know shit. Like, so I totally understand that feeling too of like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be the adult in the room. And there are definitely days where I look around and I'm like, wow, I'm more of an adult than I realized in many ways. But also, like, I get to have joy of not like always having to be restricted as an adult. I get to experience joy as like just a person. So it's very nice to hear that you think of me that way. That makes me feel very nice. I'm very flattered by that.
Party people, you all need to listen to Erin's other projects. Go check out X-Trex. Go check out Not Your Demographic. Go see Plan 9 Burlesque. If you're in the Chicago area, go do all the things.
Thank you. If I had to make a recommendation one over the other, you should listen to X-Trex. And I say that because we've had Not Your Demo for like 8.5 years and it is our redheaded stepchild now. Like it is just it is a free-for-all. So if you want free-for-all that talks about all kinds of shit, then go listen to Not Your Demo. If you want structure in a script, mostly a script, then you can go to X-Trex.
A plan, at least.
We're pointed in a direction. That's
hell.
That's very nice of you, Ben.
And so now,
freewheeling, I think, is how you would describe Not Your Demographic.
Yes, you're right. You're right. It is definitely freewheeling. That's your vibe.
But it's a whole lot of fun, just like edutainment.
Edutainment
is a whole lot of fun.
The joy of learning.
Exactly.
Feed your brain.
You know, we're not going to give you any adult worthy information here. I don't think.
No,
not at all.
But what we like to do is give a very shallow dive.
I'm glad you've kept the very shallow dive.
Yes, as Erin coined, it is a lazy river of knowledge that we're putting into your ear holes this week. I did a little something different. So let's go with one of you guys first.
I have a pretty short one, so I'll go first. Okay, so I mean, we sort of talked about this already in the other ones. The thing that I picked was the Back to the Future shoes that were made specifically for this movie. So these shoes were obviously made specifically for this movie, and they debuted as part of this movie. They appeared on screen for the first time ever, and people flipped shit, went absolutely hog wild, and were like, why can't I actually buy these? And so they sold out the limited run. They were not prepared for people to be so into it. And so now it's a very limited. It's super hard to find the originals. They're often in museums. Like there are not very many of them. And so this happens, right? That people are like, give us these fucking shoes, basically. And so the person who designed them, his name is Tinker Hatfield. I don't know if either of you know who Tinker Hatfield is. I would not be surprised if you don't. But he is like a big fucking deal in the sneaker community. He's a huge fucking deal. And part of that is because he was one of the people that helped design these shoes that are just absolutely fucking sick. And so he worked for Nike for a super long time, and people clamoring for these like 15 years later, they were like, fine, we'll make another fucking shoe. And so they came out with like an entire line of them that were shaped this way. And the original ones were the Nike Mag. Those are still very like rare, but they came out with like a huge line of them that lasted for a long time. And I had a pair of them when it was like 5 or 6 years ago. And I bought them and I was like, I love these shoes. These are great. And I pulled them out of the box to put them on the first time. And my husband walked into the room and he went, did you seriously get Back to the Future shoes? And I looked at them and went, oh, fuck, I totally got Back to the Future shoes. It hadn't even occurred to me. Had not even occurred to me. I was just like, I love these. They look great. And then they showed up and Michael was like, right there, caught immediately, just called out, and I was like, oh shit, you're right. And I went and I checked, and they are Tinker Hatfields, and like he's one of those people that if you mention his name to people in the sneaker community, they immediately are like, fuck yeah, Tinker Hatfield's the best. He makes these sick designs. And he worked for Nike and obviously worked on a bunch of other stuff too. But I recommend, this is my shallow dive that I thought that people, here's a little more about it. There's a show on Netflix called Abstract, The Art of Design. It came out in 2017. There's 2 seasons. And one of the things that they cover in that is Tinker Hatfield. And so they go through his like entire process of what it was like to design these sneakers and what it was like to feel like, oh, I have this idea that I didn't think was going to be big. And how do you then expand that out into the other things that you make? It was awesome. He talks about like minimalism inside of the design too, which I thought was fantastic and fascinating. So that's the thing about these shoes. They were in fact a huge debut as part of this movie. They were never intended to be real shoes that were sold, and yet people clamored for them, just like what happens with camp movies. People took years and then realized, we want these. These are weird and silly, and we want these in our lives. And so I think it's a great example of culture enforcing and redefining culture that's within its own like subset. That's such a weird way to describe that. In-group culture influencing out-group culture, which changes the way that all out-group culture exists. I just think it's a very fascinating piece of that. So yeah, Tinker Hatfield, part of the Abstract Art of Design series on Netflix. So I cannot recommend that enough. So that's my extraordinarily shallow dive in that. Mostly I just wanted to talk about how sick Tinker Hatfield is.
Hell yeah. Honestly, why wouldn't you want to buy shoes from a movie that you love? I mean, almost exclusively buy shoes for that reason.
It truly never occurred to me.
Honestly, I've been wearing the same shoes as Shang-Chi for the past couple years, and they're great. They're great Nikes.
I wore my Tinker Hatfields down until they were dust. I literally couldn't wear them anymore, and was like, all right, well, I got my use out of these. I loved them.
There you go.
My mother-in-law was the one who gave me the money for them. I was like, thanks, Pat. She had no idea. Okay, that's me.
I was watching a video. It was a bit from Would I Lie to You, which is this British panel show where they either tell true stories from their own lives or they lie to each other. And the whole point is to try and guess if the other person is lying. And it's one of those funny fluff, let's get 6 comedians on the same set and see what happens sort of shows. And one of them was telling a story about how he had accidentally taken off the door of a car during a test drive. And he called it a gull wing door. For me, that was the giveaway that he was telling the truth, because if you don't own one of these cars, you would never know to call it a gull wing door. But it occurred to me after the fact that that's exactly what is on the DeLorean. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about gull wing doors today.
I wanted to do it and was like, I hope someone else does it.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
That's so good.
There's not a lot of information out there because they're just sort of a thing that happened. It seemed like a good idea. They put it on a race car in 1952 and people fucking loved it. People went feral over this car door design, even though it was super impractical and stupid.
How do you park anywhere?
Yeah, right. And that's actually the counterpoint. So in 1954, when they released the first one, it was a terrible design. It didn't work. It was stupid. Like, it was purely for aesthetics and being the weird car, right? But by the time it became a thing in the 60s, 70s, 80s, sort of culminating in the DeLorean, there is actually a functional purpose for it. The problem is that cars were getting wider and parking spots were not. And the gull wing door pulls up instead of out.
Oh.
So if your parking spot is too narrow, the gull wing door on the DeLorean would actually save you that space. You'd be able to actually get out of your fucking car.
I would have thought it would be the other way, that it would fuck up getting out of your car.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Likewise.
It depends on how you design it. Like in the DeLorean and a couple other designs like the Bricklin SV1, they're counterweighted so that they don't swing wide. They go up. They just go straight up. Whereas the early ones, the ones in the 50s, absolutely, they were a nightmare. They would have absolutely clipped every car on the sides every time. But there is an argument for gull wing doors, and it is the DeLorean. The DeLorean nailed that counterweighted mechanism so that it does pretty much go straight up with the profile of the car. The downside is everything else about it. Terrible in every other way.
They put all the time and money into
apparently they are nearly impossible to waterproof and snowproof. Yeah. So like if anything gets on the roof of the car, it's coming in. It meant that car designers couldn't release a convertible version of that car because the gull-wing door. Nope, you have to take off the whole fucking assembly if you're going to make a convertible, which apparently they did. Apparently there are a couple cars that had gull-wing doors, and the convertible version, you just take off the whole thing. I don't see any photos of that, so I have no idea what that would look like, but apparently it was a thing. But yeah, so that's my shallow dive into gull-wing doors. They go back to the 1950s.
I'm surprised they go back that far. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that they were like more recent than that.
It definitely feels like a 70s, 80s thing, right?
I wonder if that's supposed, like, I mean, the joke is obviously about the DeLorean, right? Doc said, why not go in style? And it's supposed to be like LOL. But that makes more sense for a character of his age, right? Then to have been around it when he was younger and be like, these are fucking super cool. And then like gut it because it's basically useless, but like thinks the design is cool. That actually makes way more sense to me than him just kind of making a shitty joke or whatever, or having bad taste. I think it's another thing. It implies that he has like super bad taste, which doesn't feel congruent necessarily with the character. I don't know. That shallow dive made me think of that.
It is nice to think of it as, this would have been a dope ass car for a person from the 50s.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there also something about the frame of the DeLorean being made out of a different kind of metal than usual?
I don't.
We're now getting into ephemera beyond what I've actually looked up, but I feel like there was something about the DeLorean having a different frame.
Yeah, because I think when they decided to redo the DeLorean in more recent history and start making more, I think they fixed that about the newer ones, that it's like made out of something different so that it's actually better. But the whole story behind the DeLorean and the DeLorean company is even wilder when you get into it. And there's that movie about it, about John DeLorean.
They were like, we're going to make these cool cars.
What a guy.
And then they were like, goodbye. That's just absolute collapse of business.
Called Driven. Go look it up.
Right. Yes. Speaking of businesses and absolutely wildness, my edutainment is actually based on an article that I wrote when I was at my previous employer in Chicago. I do not need to name them, but you've probably seen their white and blue fucking trucks all over the city delivering appliances and shit. But part of why I wanted to do this was because they took my byline off it.
What?
Oh.
So I wanted to put it in a form of media that will have my name on it.
Yeah.
So just to let you know, if you ever see this on the blog for that store, I did it back in 2020. But this also kind of builds off of Erin's edutainment, because I did say that I do buy shoes based on where I've seen them and, you know, their place in pop culture and all that stuff. But in addition to the shoes actually existing in real life now, there's a number of things that exist now that we saw in Back to the Future Part 2. And I wanted to look at some of those in what I'm calling edutainment extra credit.
Ooh, okay.
Because it's not just one thing, it's a couple things that I looked up. This futuristic tech that Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale were thinking probably just like looked really cool and stuff, but it's like now they have these really functional aspects to them. For example, interactive workout equipment. In the Cafe 80s, you see them on the bikes, you know, with screens and stuff. And now that's pretty normal for workout equipment to have a display with a touch screen and whatever. You know, like stationary bikes like the Proform Studio Bike, or treadmills like Nordic Tracks, you know, but also Pelotons.
Peloton, of course.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big one. They can change your speed, your your incline, and you can even watch videos of trainers. There are even live aspects to the workouts that you can like sign up for classes in your own home. So there have been advancements in workout equipment since this movie.
Yeah.
Another one is wall-mounted televisions. So like flat screens became all the rage.
Oh, damn.
But the way that they use them in Back to the Future, they use them almost like as aesthetic, as art, and the thing that comes to mind is the Samsung frame, which is meant to look like a picture frame in your house when you're not using it as a TV.
They're so cool.
They're so cool. Like TV is just getting thinner and thinner and all that stuff. It seemed like a frivolous idea in Back to the Future Part 2, but now everyone and their mom has it.
It's funny too, because I feel like it's TV, it's going over the hump, right? It's doing the horseshoe of like when it started, and I think what people want now is it was hidden, right? You had an entertainment center that you could like close, and then it was just a big like functional art piece that you use. Like there used to be those big like the giant TVs that sat inside of those like entertainment centers, but it was meant to look like art in like the 50s and 60s. Like I love that people are like, you know what I don't actually want to look at all fucking day? This TV screen on a wall. I think maybe I want to put a picture frame around it, and maybe, I don't know, set a screensaver. Like that is the thing that we do a lot, that we want it to be more hidden. And so that's right. That's a great observation. You're doing some great observing, Ben.
Yep.
Thank you.
A lot of TVs have that feature now.
It's like those Yule logs, right? Yes, exactly. Including the ones that have like Apple TV hooked up to them, where it's just like the shades in Back to the Future 2, where they project like something else, like, oh, look, it's Tokyo. But speaking of vision, virtual and augmented reality goggles. So like those VR and AR headsets, like Google Glass or the Oculus Quest and things like that will show you, you can watch TV like Marty Jr. You can answer the phone like Marlene, but then you can walk around Skull Island from King Kong and watch him fight some dinosaurs if you want. There's some wild shit. I'm curious
about when VR and augmented reality glasses started to be shaped like that. And is it part of this cultural time where like retro futurism was so popular? Like, I'm so curious about where that shape came from, because it's so consistent. Like that those look exactly like those look now. I'm just so curious, like, where did that start? At what point was that established as that's what that looks like? Because they could have done anything. They could have done literally anything with the way that it looks today, and it looks identical to the way that we pictured it would look 35 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the only way they were able to sell it. Because if you remember Google Glass,
terrible.
Granted, Google Glass doesn't do VR, but tanked. Absolutely did not work.
Yeah. Nobody wanted them.
And I think it was just too different from how we imagined this technology to be.
I totally agree.
Yeah. But the first flip phones looked a lot like Star Trek communicators.
1000%.
They did.
And like
we had a context for what this meant.
I didn't know at the time that that's what that was, because I didn't watch Trek, and now I look back and I'm like, God, I wish I had that phone again.
I know, right? Okay, two more. One that we used a whole lot in 2020 and the years following. Video calls.
Walt Disney was obsessed with that shit too. They're inside of that weird earth.
Yes.
Right. Yes, 1000%. That it's funny because even like 2018, I would have been still like, yeah, we don't really integrate that. That's a thing that people have, but like you don't use it that much. Now 2020, it's like, that's how you talk to people. This is just how it
all
is
the
now.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Most of my conversations at work are that way.
Yeah, 100%. I'm never in the same room as people.
We are doing it as we speak.
I know, right? Exactly.
It's happening right now. Yeah,
it's happening right now. There's cameras integrated in almost every electronic that we have now. From our phones to our computers to iPads. And tablets and things like that. But then things like the Google chalk nest hub or whatever. Or the Facebook portal.
I was thinking about that earlier this episode too.
Yeah. Like there are things that just you would randomly have, and you can all of a sudden call your friend, call your parents, and video with them. So much so that FaceTiming has become a verb and
absolutely.
a noun. You know? And finally, the last thing that I wanted to bring up is home automation and smart assistants. Marty Jr. asks for the fruit in the dining room. You know, they turn their lights on. You know, everything in their house is automated, right, in the McFly home. But now, you know, as opposed to seeing it as like a sci-fi trope, it's become commonplace with things like a smart speaker or a Ring or Nest camera at your front door, or like more complex like Control 4 systems, you know, that can just do everything. But with the help of, you know, Google or Siri or Alexa, you could just be like, hey, play Huey Lewis in the News, and it'll do it from whatever service you've hooked up to.
The thing that that clicked for me in this moment is that when Jennifer, that I talked about like 75 times on these episodes, when Jennifer gets brought into the house and the cops are laying her down and they're saying, you know, ma'am, it's dangerous to enter without lights on. And she says, lights on, and they come on. Today, people watching that would be like, yeah, it is dangerous to enter your house without them automatically turning on. And like, at the time that this movie came out, it was like, what a crazy thing that you could ask your house to turn your lights on like that. And now it's just like, people just do that. People just have it like, my lights are set to go on in my living room at 6:15 in the morning. Like, I don't even think about that shit anymore. And like that at the time that this movie was published was right. It was future. That was the fucking future. And now we live in the future.
Oh yes.
I can do almost everything they can do in that house.
Yep.
Doesn't hand me fruit. That's basically the thing.
I need that.
You don't have that app
in
yet.
My house. I want my fruit stored at my ceiling. I can just order it to come down. That'd be great.
Honestly, I don't know why Samsung hasn't developed like a kind of like fridge that goes in like the center island of your kitchen, and it's just like fruit, and then it comes up. Like
that'd be dope as fuck,
that.
Right?
Where's our
get on that, Samsung?
It would break very quickly.
Fuck a flying car. I want
it totally would.
Dissension tray.
If I can get it to follow me around the house too, like if you could like put a layer above the ceiling, so like whatever room I'm in, I'm like, give me the fruit thing. Boop,
like a
here you go.
Layer, only it's smarter.
See, I immediately went to it's like Peter Pan's flight like track on your ceiling of just like following 100%. You with
you know, I'm gonna need it at any moment. I want blackberries.
Oh honestly, man, what if you could just have like a thing that followed you around the house that had all the things you constantly forget?
Yes. Just pick up my keys.
Like, I gotta put my phone down. Table, and it comes down. You set your phone down, and it goes back up in the ceiling.
It's like, here's your pen.
I left it over. Nope. Here
push a button.
Where are my glasses? That should be the activation phrase too. Where is my?
I love this idea. We gotta get working on it.
That would be really cool. Oh man, we could make a killing on this if we actually knew how to make this work.
If only any of us had the skills.
Someone get us an engineer really quick.
Yes, stat.
So there it is. Those are a number of things that Back to the Future Part 2 manifested into the world.
All right. I feel like we have come to an end.
Yes. We have adequately edutained you, hopefully.
3 plus solid topics.
Yes. Oh man. I wish we could just talk about Back to the Future all the time.
It's the best.
Because it makes me so happy. Honestly, I barely had to rewatch this movie to prepare for this.
I sat down beforehand and was like, here's a little how the sausage is made. This is what I do when I record extracts. I don't watch the episode beforehand. I just write down what I remember. And 90% of the time I nailed the structure. And that's sort of what I did with this. I was like, I think I remember everything in the way it goes. And was like, totally do. Sometimes
Totally do.
Sometimes I'm wrong. I've watched a couple episodes and been like, I have to rewrite my whole summary. This is all wrong. Most of the time, though, it works. Anyway.
Hell yes. I had this on almost like I was watching a football game.
Yeah.
Like I put it on my drive to San Diego. So I was really mostly just listening to it.
I love that.
But it was like playing in my head while I was watching the road.
What a hilarious way to experience Back to the Future 2 as a radio play.
I know, right?
I bet that was actually pretty good.
That's fun. I love that. Okay, all right.
You can find us on the internet. I'm at bsilverio20 on Instagram, X, Letterboxd. You know, I'm
You
places.
can find me at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can find me at The Indecisionist on all the meta properties and Blue Sky.
Use the hashtag if you're still into that kind of thing. Time to party. That's time the number 2 party if you want to join the conversation.
As well as Time the number 2 party, all spelled out. Thanks to Warwick.
Listen, party people, it's been a ride. 4 amazing years and counting, because we're not stopping.
That's right.
We got a whole year of great episodes coming up. Hopefully you'll stick with us for the ride. Whenever we catch Erin down the road again, it'll be great.
Got some good shit planned out. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I'm happy to have started the year. That makes me feel very good. I'm happy about it.
Hell yes. And to quote the great Doc Brown, even though we have all these plans and we would like things to happen the way we want them to, Doc said the future isn't written. It can be changed. You know that. Anyone can make their future whatever they want it to be. So hopefully, as we've entered this incredibly tumultuous year so far, and we're just in, my God, we're 20 days in at the time of this recording, and it may seem tough, but the future can be changed, and we can totally do that, hopefully. A good way to start is to be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes.